Okay, today we're going to be chatting about the New Balance 1080 V14, which was a shoe that I didn't initially like all that much. Found it a bit soft and mushy on my first couple of runs. Got some numb feet through the forefoot from trying to kind of find the ground through that softer foam. But over the last 4 or 5 months, it's snuck its way back into my rotation. First off through some warm-ups and cool-downs, 2 or 3 Ks here or there. Jumped into some easier runs, getting up to some daily jogs around that kind of 40-45 minute mark. And I've actually started to really enjoy it. So I've now got to the point where I've got about 80 Ks on this shoe, which I did not expect after the first couple of runs. So yeah, we're going to share some thoughts, even if we're a little bit late to the party. As always, running through the shoe from top to bottom, chatting about the price point, and I've got a couple of competitors here which should be able to help you understand what this shoe is about or whether there are some other models out there which can do a better job. Starting off with a few specs, this is a higher cushion premium daily trainer. We have 38mm of foam in the heel with a 6mm drop, which in this current market isn't actually all that tall. A lot of daily trainers these days are reaching that 40mm mark and going above it. 42, 44mm for a Nova Blast. So this is still well cushioned, but it's not the highest cushioned out there anymore. In terms of the foam underfoot, we have a Fresh Foam X EVA compound, which is a soft, plush, fairly compressive foam, but it is more firm than the outgoing 1080 V13, which for most people is going to be music to their ears. Just has a little bit more guts, isn't going to die out after a couple 100 Ks. In terms of the weight, we're coming in at 295 grams in my men's size 10, which is spot on. That's exactly average for a daily trainer in my size, although that is starting to trend a little bit lighter. I'm pretty happy with that for a jogging shoe. I don't expect it to be any lighter. Starting off with the upper, I would say that this is well done. It's exactly what I expect from New Balance in terms of that higher cushion daily trainer. They tend to make comfortable uppers in my experience. We've got a good deal of structure back here through the heel counter, nice little bit of padding. I really like the rounded out heel counter padding where the Achilles is going to meet the upper. Fantastic for someone like me who blisters at the drop of a hat. Tongue is well padded. We've got these kind of ventilation holes further down, gusseted on both sides so it doesn't slide around, which is very, very nice to see. The lockdown and heel hold is very secure too. I find that the padding has just enough give to be kind of comfortable, but not so much that you have to crank the laces down to really get the foam to kind of settle. So really nice upper hold here. Impressed with the fit so far. In terms of the sizing and length, I would say that we have a slightly longer fit here. I usually float 10, 10.5, but I would most of the time go 10.5 in a daily trainer. But here, with a size 10, I've got a decent amount of room ahead of the toe, no issues with room whatsoever. So I would suggest going a half size down if you float sizes, but otherwise true to size should do you just fine. The only other thing to mention is the fact that that will be incongruent with the other New Balance models like the Rebel, the SC Elite, and also the Pacer V2, which tend to fit a half size short. So that is a little bit frustrating if you're one of those people who believes that all shoes from the same brand fit the same, because they don't. So go for the half size down for the 1080, but if you're going to be transferring that across to those performance models, I would go a half size or even that full size up, because they do tend to fit a little bit shorter. In terms of the width, I would say we have a slightly more accommodating fit here, a little bit more room through the midfoot and toe box, slightly rounded shape there, which is nice to see, but I wouldn't say that it's anything more than every other daily trainer out there right now. If you need extra room, don't go gambling on a standard width. New Balance have plenty of 2E and even 4E shoes, so just go for that instead. A little bit more room, if you have a slightly wider foot, it could work, but it's probably not worth the gamble. Just get the 2E if you need it. Overall for me, comfy upper, doesn't overcommit to the padding. The only knock I'd have on this shoe is that it isn't the most breathable with that extra padding with the double layer mesh. So in the summer here in Australia, a little bit sweaty, but in the winter, very comfortable, a little bit warmer, which is nice, I guess. So trade-offs there, but a very nice step in, very, very comfortable upper. Moving down to the midsole, this was part of the shoe which I had a little bit of issues with initially. I felt like it was a little bit too soft, a little bit too mushy, gave me numb feet through the forefoot, which for me is usually a sign that a shoe is too soft. I'm kind of grabbing at the ground to try and find where I'm really putting my feet. But after about 20 to 30 Ks of running, once I reckon that foam kind of compressed out and settled down just a bit, I really started to enjoy the kind of plush, comfortable, reliable ride that this shoe gives, even if it's not the most exciting or kind of bouncy or fun, it is just that kind of nice plush, soft, reliable jogging shoe, probably in the best way. This is the perfect jogging shoe, and I've really enjoyed it over the next couple 40, 50 Ks. I enjoy the extra little bit of flexibility through the forefoot. I enjoy the wider base underfoot. It just feels like something that you can tick the legs over and know that you're going to feel comfortable by about that 30 to 40 minute mark, but maybe not to the point where I would take this for those longer runs. I do still think that the softness of this foam does start to kind of warm up and bottom out when you take it to those longer distances. To me, this is a massive upgrade over the 1080 V13, which was a soft, mushy mess. Comfortable in the first 1 or 2 Ks for sure, but once it started to warm out and kind of compress, it really became unstable and I kind of just lacked any guts to it. This just has that little bit of extra foam rebound to it, which can keep you ticking along. I've enjoyed my time in the 1080 since that first couple of runs, and I do think that this is going to suit a lot of people who are chasing that kind of simple, plush, semi-stable daily trainer, which you can just use for ticking the legs over for, you know, those 2 or 3 runs a week where you're recovering from a session or just trying to get a run in with mates or run club, that kind of stuff. It's just a comfortable jogging shoe. Nothing special, nothing crazy, but I think they've done a good job here. Moving down to the outsole, we've got this pod rubber setup, which so far has actually been holding up better than I was expecting. So 80 Ks in, we're seeing a little bit of wear on some of these rubber pods and a little bit of discoloration to the foam, but I actually do expect this to last reasonably well. It's quite a sticky rubber as well as far as New Balance goes, so I'm pretty happy so far with this one. I wouldn't say that this is one to take onto light trails or kind of off-road. I do think that soft foam will take a beating from sharp rocks or gravel, but on pavement, on smoother paths, I think this is doing just fine, and the grip so far has been pretty good too. In terms of durability overall, quick chat about that. I think the outsole is not going to be the limiting factor here. I do think it's going to come down to the midsole, which you can see is creasing up, compressing a little bit more. I expect to get about 500 to 600 Ks out of the 1080 V14 compared to some other daily trainers like maybe a Hoka Skyflow, which I would expect to get that kind of 700, 800 Ks. So you are getting that little bit of extra plushness and compression, but I do think that will come at the cost of durability. That is also speculation, by the way, and that is going to depend on a few different factors. But for me personally, gut feel, I don't expect to get this to that kind of standard daily trainer durability mark. Coming around to the price point here in Australia, $270. I think is probably the biggest weakness of this shoe. It is nice, it is plush, it is comfortable, but for $270 with an EVA foam underfoot, I do think it's leaving itself vulnerable to other brands which are innovating or at least bringing the price points down on their EVA training shoes. When you've got shoes like the Nova Blast 5 with a similar kind of plush compressive ride for $240, the Magnify Nitro 2 which uses a nitrogen EVA for $220, even the Adistar 3 models from Adidas which are also using EVA foams for $200. It does just make this shoe a little bit pricier than it needs to be, and it does kind of make you wonder when they're going to start to kind of phase in those newer foams and where EVA is going to be in a couple of years. It's not that this running shoe isn't offering a nice experience. The problem is that other brands are starting to kind of bump those price points down and offer a similar level of performance for a lower price point, or they're offering something which is more engaging and more exciting for the same, if not less. That's probably my biggest criticism of New Balance and also Hoka as well. Their continued use of EVA foams with higher price points is going to leave them behind when other brands start to introduce those more fun foams into their daily trainers. If this shoe was $250, I don't think there would be any issue, but when you're pushing it up to $270, getting into that kind of premium space, I'm not quite sure that it has the kind of specs or performance to really match with some of those more energetic trainers. Getting into a couple of comparisons to round things out, I think the most similar shoe on the market right now to the 1080 is the Nova Blast 5. Compressive, plush, soft EVA foam. Maybe a little bit wider underfoot, maybe a bit more stable, but overall the feeling is quite similar. Wider fit in the Nova Blast 5, a bit more room through that forefoot. I do tend to like the 1080 a little bit more. I feel like this shoe is broken in quite nicely, whereas the Nova Blast 5 just tends to be a little bit too soft and mushy for my liking. This shoe has given me the sensation that the 1080 did in that first 1 or 2 runs, which I didn't enjoy. This shoe just seems to keep on giving me that experience, whereas as I said, the 1080 broke in quite nicely. So I would probably pay the extra 30 bucks for the 1080 V14, but if you like soft foams, most people should save that $30 and get the Nova Blast 5, which is a little bit lighter as well, maybe a bit more dynamic, but yeah, not for me. Then we've got the Hoka Skyflow, which is again sitting up against that kind of $270, $280 price point. This is a firmer, more resilient foam, a bit more of a rock ring to it, although it is quite a gentle transition through foot strike, whereas this shoe is using the compression to kind of guide you through. A little bit more of a snug fit, typical to Hoka, a bit more of a squeeze through the midfoot. The outsole setup, the kind of pod rubber, quite similar as well. I would say if you like a firmer, more structured ride, you want a bit more pace pickup maybe, the Skyflow has a bit more guts to it, a bit more of a firm response, which means that you can kind of feel the ground a bit more and get rolling, whereas a 1080 is definitely more of that jogging, soft, plush, comfortable shoe. The Magnify Nitro 2 from Puma is one of my favorite jogging shoes of all time. This is that perfect Goldilocks blend of soft enough to be comfortable, but firm enough with a decent response to keep you moving. I really enjoy this shoe for all of my easy jogs, but moving into daily training paces as well, because it does have a little bit more firmness to it. The 1080 on the other hand is definitely isolated to those kind of easy day recovery jogs, just kind of plodding along. I don't really feel like I can push it along much in this shoe before it starts to sink in and kind of bottom out. In terms of the fit, you get a bit more stretch through the Magnify Nitro 2 toe box, very stretchy mesh there. The grip on the Magnify is also better, Puma grip, fantastic on light trails, footpaths, it just works everywhere and tends to last forever. $220 or even less for the Magnify Nitro 2 versus the 1080. Pretty easy win. I would recommend this over the 1080. Then we've got the Neo Zen from Mizuno, which is quite similar in terms of the level of softness and compression, maybe a bit more in the Neo Zen, but the difference here is that this shoe just tends to bounce back a lot more than the 1080 does. This rebounds enough to get you through your stride, just keep you ticking over, whereas this one gives you a lot more back and it tends to feel more fun and energetic and dynamic. A bit more flexibility through it for sure, but I do feel like I can just push the pace, get up into those daily training, even close to the tempo paces for the Neo Zen. The upper on them is going to be a big deciding factor though. A lot of people aren't a fan of the kind of sock booty fit. I like it because it does protect my Achilles. The 1080 though, a bit more traditional, structured heel counter. The lockdown is a bit more secure. So if you like that more traditional jogging shoe, go for the 1080. But if you want something more dynamic, a bit more inventive, go for the Neo Zen. 260 versus 270, pretty much the same. So yeah, overall the 1080 for me is a perfectly enjoyable jogging shoe. It's soft, it's comfortable, it's got that nice squish with a little bit of bounce back. There's nothing really wrong with this shoe other than maybe that kind of softness, which is mostly going to be preference based. A lot of people love this shoe for that soft feel. The only thing I think is holding this shoe back is the price point, which leaves it vulnerable to those comparisons, which might lead you to buy something else instead. 270, bit much. I would be interested to see whether New Balance tone some of these price points back down, or any of these other brands with higher price point EVA trainers, whether they bring them back to, you know, $250 when other brands are using TPU and PBA and all these other exciting foams. Will be interesting to see, but yeah, right now, in a bit of a no man's land situation, I do think this is one to pick up on discount, or at least try on in store so that you know that you really want it, because I do think there are other options out there which can offer a similar experience. Good shoe from New Balance, doing the job, just maybe a little bit pricey for my liking.